The stranger who wore his name. On the shadow as autonomous agent. A merchant traveling east on business stopped one evening at an inn in a town he had never visited. He had been on the road for some weeks. The route was new to him. He had taken it on a recommendation from a colleague. The inn was a respectable inn on the main street of the town, 3 stories, a clean stable yard, a sign above the door painted with a small black bear. He stabled his horse. He came inside with his small leather bag and approached the counter. The innkeeper behind the counter looked up. "Welcome back, sir," said the innkeeper. The merchant paused. "You have me confused with someone else." "No, sir, I don't think so. You stayed here in the spring, the end room on the 2nd floor. You paid in advance for 3 nights. You left a small gold pen behind in the drawer of the writing table. I kept it for you. I have it still." The merchant explained that he had not been in this town before. He had not, in fact, been east of the river in 11 years. He could account for every spring of his adult life. The innkeeper, in a small puzzled embarrassment, produced from a drawer behind the counter a small gold pen. The merchant took it. It was his. It had been his father's pen, then his own. He had owned it for 26 years. He had lost it, he had thought, in his own house in the previous spring. He had searched for it for some weeks. He had given up at last. He had bought a replacement at the stationer's on the high street of his own town. The replacement was at that moment in his coat pocket. He could feel in his coat pocket the weight of the replacement. He could see on the counter in front of him the original. They could not, by ordinary reasoning, both be in the room, but they were. "Are you well, sir?" said the innkeeper. The merchant took a room. He took, in fact, the same end room on the 2nd floor that the innkeeper had assigned him before. He sat on the bed for an hour. He turned the pen over in his hand. The pen had a small scratch on its barrel that his father had made in his own boyhood with a knife, a scratch the merchant had known all his life. The scratch was on the pen on the counter, and the scratch was somehow not on the replacement in his pocket. The replacement was a clean pen. The original carried his family's small history. He stayed 3 nights. He spent the 3 days walking the town, making, in the most natural way he could, small inquiries. He spoke to the baker, 2 doors down from the inn, who remembered him, who described, in fact, a particular kind of bread the merchant had asked for on his earlier visit, a bread the merchant did indeed prefer at home but had not, he was certain, ever ordered in this town. He spoke to the chandler, who had sold him a particular kind of wax the autumn before last. The chandler produced the entry in his ledger. The handwriting in the ledger, recording the purchase, was the merchant's own. He spoke to the seamstress on the side street. She came out from behind her curtain when he entered. She had been working on a small piece of embroidery. She set it down. "Your coat held," she said. "My coat." "The dark coat, the lining I mended. I told you the silk was old and would not take a second mending. You said that if it lasted you another season it would be enough. Has it lasted?" He had, in his wardrobe at home, a dark coat with a small mark on the lining, a mark that had been there since his coming of age. He had not, by his own memory, ever had the coat mended. He took off his outer coat, which he was wearing that day. It was not the dark one. He had not packed the dark one for this journey. He asked the seamstress, very carefully, to describe the mark on the lining of the coat she had mended. She described it precisely. He spoke to a widow at the market, on his 2nd morning, who blushed faintly when he greeted her, in a way that did not, on inspection, suggest the blushing of a recent introduction. He did not, after seeing her face, press the matter. He understood in his stomach what he had been beginning to suspect since the pen. He had been in this town. He had not, by any honest reckoning of his own memory, been in this town. There was someone in the world who was him, who was not him, who had been doing things in his name. The someone had his face, his name, his pen, his coat. The someone had bought bread, ordered wax, had a coat mended, and had blushed a particular widow. The someone had a small inventory of completed acts that, when set against the merchant's own account of those weeks, occupied the same hours. He rode home. He rode hard. He did not, on the road, sleep well. He arrived in his own town on a grey afternoon. He went to his own house. His wife was there. She greeted him pleasantly. She did not, in the greeting, indicate any concern about his absence. He had been gone, by her count, the expected 3 weeks. He had written letters, the letters had arrived, she had answered them, the marriage had continued without disturbance. He sat with her at the kitchen table. He did not, in the first hours, tell her about the inn. He asked her instead about certain particular weeks of the previous year. He asked her about a particular Sunday in April. She remembered it. He had been home. He had been ill, in fact, with a small fever and had spent the day in bed. He asked her about a Sunday in October. She remembered it. He had been home. They had walked together in the small wood beyond the river. He asked her about a Tuesday in February. She paused on this one longer. She said, "You were home, but you were strange that evening. You spoke very little. I asked you twice if you were well. You did not in any clear way answer." He was on every day he asked her about at home. He had, in the matching weeks at the inn's town, also been there. He thanked her for the answers. He did not that evening explain why he had asked. He sat that night in his study. He sat very still. He had, by then, the full shape of what was happening. There were 2 of him. He was one of them. There was another. The other had been operating in his name for some years, perhaps for many years, in the town to the east, and in other places he had not yet visited. The other had his face, his hand, his pen. The other had been making in those places the small life he had not let himself make there. The other was, on the available evidence, neither particularly cruel nor particularly virtuous. The other had been competent in business in the town to the east. The other had been a particular kind of guest at the inn. The other had perhaps loved a widow at the market, or more carefully, the widow's blush suggested something the merchant himself had never permitted. The other had been, in some measurable but not catastrophic way, the merchant's life as the merchant had not lived it. He understood in the dark of his study what the other was. He spoke aloud. "I would like to meet you," he said. There was, for some minutes, no reply. The house was quiet. He could hear his wife faintly moving in the upper room. Then the chair on the other side of the desk creaked. He looked up. There was someone in it. The someone was him. He was wearing the dark coat, the one the seamstress had mended. He had the pen, the original pen, in his breast pocket. The merchant could see the small gold clip. His face was the merchant's face, perhaps a year older, somehow more settled, with a small scar on the cheek that the merchant did not have. He sat in the chair the way the merchant sat. He had the merchant's hands. "What are you?" said the merchant. "I am the substance you would not be," said the other. "I am not your absence. I am the man you had the materials for and refused to make. I have been making him in the places you do not visit. I have been wearing your face there because I have no other face. I have been carrying your name because the name was the only one available to me. I am not separate from you. I am also not, in any simple sense, you. I am what you have been declining to become, doing, in your absence, what you would not do. What have you done? I have done what you have feared to do. The widow at the market is not, on the whole, the catastrophe you would have feared. She is a kind woman. I have visited her 4 times in 3 years. We have spoken mostly. I have, on one occasion, lain with her. You have been faithful to your wife. I have been the part of you that wanted, in some quiet way, to know whether you could be loved in a town in which you were not the husband. I learned that you could. I am not, in this respect, proud. I am not, in this respect, ashamed. I am the experiment you would not let yourself perform. I have performed it. The merchant sat with this. What else? I have made several business arrangements that you would not have made. They have been small. They have not, on the whole, harmed anyone. They have made, in fact, a small additional income, which has been accumulating in a strongbox at the inn. I have used the money to pay for the widow's son's schooling. The widow does not know it was me. She thinks the schooling was paid for by an anonymous patron of the town. The son is, by my report, a thoughtful boy who will, in time, make a good doctor. You would not have done this. You would have considered the arrangements that produced the money to be slightly disreputable. They were. I performed them anyway. The schooling was the use of the money. You have been making a life. I have. The life is yours. The life is also not yours. You have been making here a different life. The 2 lives are not in their substance irreconcilable. They are in their substance both yours. I am the part of you that has been making the Eastern life. You are the part of you that has been making the Western life. We have been in some sense working in parallel. You have not, until tonight, known I was working. Will you stop? Not unless you take up the work yourself. I cannot stop. I am the substance of what you have refused. I cannot be uncreated. I can only be acknowledged. The acknowledgement changes the work. After tonight I will continue, but you will know about me. You will, in your own letters home, write differently. You will know that the widow exists. You will know that the boy is in school on funds you in a sense, provided. You will be a less innocent man. You will also be a more whole man. The innocence was the thing that had been making me necessary. I should kill you. You cannot. I am you. The killing would be your own. Several men have tried in your position. They have not succeeded. They have only managed to kill the visible part. The invisible part, the other, the substance of the refused, continues. It builds itself a new face. The new face in time walks in another town. The work is not killing. The work is the acknowledgement. The merchant sat with the other for the rest of the night. He did not in those hours find a way to make him leave. He had not on consideration wanted him to leave. He had wanted more accurately to know him. By morning he knew him. The other left around dawn by walking through the study door. The merchant heard the door open and close. When he looked, the other was gone. He did not, in the years that followed, return to the town to the east. He did not, in those years, write to the widow. He could not, in honesty, write to her as a man she had not met. He let her keep in her memory the man she had known. He did, however, in his own town, in his own life, begin to make some of the choices the other had been making in his name. He spoke occasionally more openly to his wife about things he had, before that night, kept private. He took, in his business, one or two small risks he had previously refused. He gave anonymously to the schooling of a particular boy in his own town whom he had previously, on principle, not helped. He became, in his own town, a slightly more substantial man. The other, somewhere east of the river, continued. The merchant did not, in his lifetime, fully know what the other was doing. He understood, by then, that the other was the part of him that would always be doing the work he had not, in his own visible life, taken up. The work of the two of them, his own visible work, and the other's invisible work, was, somehow, the single work of being him in the world. He had been, before that night, only half of it. He died at 68, in his own bed, in his own town. The other, by all evidence, continued for some years after his death, being seen occasionally by travelers from the eastern town, who would, on returning to the merchant's town, hear of his death and remark in some confusion that they had seen him recently in the east. The widow's son, by then a doctor, attended one of these conversations and did not, in his own face, give anything away. In time, the other also stopped being seen. The substance, when there is no longer a body to be its complement, dissolves. The dissolution takes a few years. By the third year after the merchant's death, the eastern town no longer knew him. The widow, who had lived to be old, had died. The innkeeper had been replaced. The pen, which had been left in the strongbox at the inn, had been melted down for its gold. The trace was gone. The substance, in some sense, returned to the field from which substances of that kind come. It was waiting, in that field, for the next refused life. It would not wait long. The shadow is not only what you refused to feed, it is what has been quietly feeding itself in the towns you do not visit. It has your face, it has your pen, it has been doing, in your name, the life you declined to make. You will discover it in some middle year by accident, a pen on a counter, a blush at a market. You cannot kill it. The killing is your own. The work is to meet it in your study, at night, and to acknowledge it. The acknowledgement does not abolish it. The acknowledgement only ends the secrecy. You will not, after that, be more virtuous. You will be more substantial. The other, in time, may dissolve. The work, in time, returns to one body. Most do not, in their lifetimes, meet the other. The other continues without Them, they die half a man.